You know that sinking feeling when you hear yourself saying the same thing for the third time this week? Please don't talk to me like that. I can't keep staying late. You can't just show up at my place. You repeat yourself, you explain, you remind, and nothing really changes. The problem isn't that you aren't clear. The problem is that you treat boundaries like speeches instead of decisions. Here we're going to make boundaries simple and effective. By the end, you'll walk away with one clean boundary line you can actually remember under stress, a calm consequence you can follow through on without yelling or drama, and a repeatable habit so you don't slide back into old patterns when people test you. You'll learn how to state something once and then let your actions do the rest. Educational content inspired by classical Stoic texts. Not medical, psychological, or legal advice. Stoic thinkers were obsessed with the idea of only controlling what is truly yours. As Marcus notes in Meditations 5.20, your choices are your own, other people's behavior is not. Epictetus reminds us that when you tie your peace to someone else's choices, you've already handed them the keys. That's why repeating yourself over and over feels so exhausting. You keep trying to control their response instead of controlling your own follow-through. So here's the real issue: every time you repeat yourself, you accidentally lower the price of your boundary. You teach people, "Don't worry, I'll say this several more times before anything happens." Over time, your words sound like background noise. You end up feeling disrespected and resentful. The good news is you don't need to become louder or meaner. You need to become more consistent and more boring. At work, you might keep reminding your manager that you can't keep answering Slack messages at 10 p.m., yet you still respond every time your phone buzzes on the nightstand. In dating, you may say you're not okay with last-minute plans, yet still rush out the door whenever someone texts late at night. With family, you promise yourself you won't discuss certain topics again, then you get drawn into the same argument at every Sunday dinner. Your mouth keeps saying no while your calendar and your actions keep saying yes. We're going to build a different pattern together. You'll learn to say something once, in a normal tone, and then let your next move carry the message. That might mean leaving the group chat when it gets toxic, stepping out of a room when voices rise, or letting a text sit unanswered when someone ignores your stated limit. It does not have to be dramatic. It just has to be consistent. We're going to build that together in a very practical way. First, we'll flip the way you think about boundaries so they describe your own actions instead of trying to control anyone else. Next, we'll design one clear line you can say once, in normal tone, without sounding like you're giving a lecture. Then, we'll attach a non-reactive consequence that doesn't depend on their cooperation. After that, we'll look at how to apply this in everyday North American situations at work, in dating, with family, and with money. Finally, we'll put it all together in a single story and a small set of daily practices you can start using today. Stay with me until the very end, and while you're here, hit like, tap subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Here is the first shift: a real boundary describes what you will do, not what someone else must do. Instead of "you need to stop texting me after midnight," the focus becomes "I don't respond to messages after midnight." This matters because you can always control your side of that sentence, not theirs. This works because it moves you from begging to choose. When your line is about your own behavior, there is nothing to argue about. You are not making a moral speech about how they should live, you are quietly stating how you will live. Even if they disagree or try to negotiate, your rule still stands because it is anchored in your actions, not their approval. Here is a simple line you can use as a template: "I don't stay in situations where my basic needs are ignored, so if this continues, I will step away and handle my part differently." It is clear, it is about you, and it contains the line and the consequence. You can swap out situations and basic needs for something more specific, like time, money, privacy, or respect, while keeping that same basic structure. Picture a typical workday. Your manager or team lead keeps dropping quick tasks on you at 4:45 p.m., and you keep staying late to finish them. You have already said 3 times that you need to leave by 5 because of daycare pickup, but nothing changes. Using this new approach, you schedule a calm moment and explain that you leave at 5 for family responsibilities and that anything after 4 will be handled the next workday. The first time an email hits your inbox at 4:50, you feel the pull to stay. Instead, you look at the clock, remind yourself of your own sentence, and log off on time. You feel uncomfortable, but also a small surge of self-respect. Your behavior reinforces the line more loudly than any extra explanation ever could. Now imagine dating. You keep telling someone you're seeing that you need plans at least a day in advance, yet they keep sending late-night come-over texts. You could keep sending long messages about how you value your time and how you feel disrespected, or you could quietly apply the same structure, decide that you simply do not rearrange your evening for last-minute texts, and then stop replying to them. If you want, you can say your one clear sentence during a calm moment, and then let your actions match it. For today, choose one situation where you have been repeating yourself with no change. Rewrite your message so it starts with I don't, or I will, and ends with what you will calmly do if the pattern continues. Say it once if needed, and then give yourself permission to act on it the next time the test shows up. Once you know that a boundary is about your own actions, the next step is to deliver it once, clearly, and at the right time. Instead of blurting it out when you are angry or hurt, you choose a moment when you are relatively calm and the other person can hear you. You are not looking for a perfect conversation, just a clean statement. This approach works because people listen better when they don't feel ambushed. When you drop a boundary in the middle of a fight, the other person is usually focused on defending themselves, not understanding you. When you bring it up in a calmer moment, you lower the emotional volume. You also make it easier on yourself, because you are not fighting to remember your words while your nervous system is in alarm mode. You've already chosen the sentence in advance, so your job is simply to say it once and stop talking. Here is a line you can adapt. I want you to know this ahead of time. When behavior happens, I take care of myself by action, so that's what I'll be doing going forward. It is direct without being aggressive, and it signals that this is your plan, not a threat. You are giving them information, not a warning label. Imagine a shared apartment in Toronto or Chicago. Your roommate keeps leaving the kitchen a mess, even though you have asked them several times to rinse their dishes and wipe the counter. In the past, you snapped at them when you were already frustrated and late for work. This time, you wait until a neutral moment, maybe a Sunday afternoon when you are both in the living room. You say, in a normal tone, that when the kitchen is left dirty overnight, you will move any dishes that are not yours to one side of the sink and leave them there. You do not raise your voice, you do not debate whether they should be neater, and you do not try to get them to promise anything. The first time the kitchen is a mess again, you pause and notice the urge to give a lecture. Instead, you quietly move their dishes and follow through on your part. Maybe they grumble, maybe they shrug, and maybe they eventually adjust. The key is that you are no longer burning energy repeating yourself. You said it once, clearly, and then your action delivered the reminder for you. For a small step today, write out one boundary you need to communicate and choose a specific calm moment this week to say it. Practice the sentence once out loud when you are alone, then commit to saying it only one time to the person involved, without adding extra explanations to make them like it. Knowing what you will do is not enough, you also need to decide how you will act when the boundary is tested. The rule here is simple: state it once, and then let a quiet, predictable consequence do the talking. You are not trying to punish anyone, you are simply moving your time, energy, or money away from patterns that don't work for you. This works because most people only start to take boundaries seriously when they see that your behavior has changed. Arguments and emotional speeches are easy to ignore, actions are harder to ignore because they change the experience. When your response is calm and consistent, it also becomes hard to turn you into the villain. You are not exploding or sulking. You are just following through on what you already said you would do. You can use a line like this to make the connection explicit: I'm not trying to control you, but if behavior continues, I'll be doing action instead, so I can take care of myself. That sentence anchors you in your own responsibility and makes it clear that you are not waiting around for their permission to act differently. It also reminds you that the consequence is for your well-being. Consider a money example, common in a lot of North American families. A sibling or cousin keeps asking to borrow money and then pays you back late, or not at all. You have already reminded them several times, and you feel used every time you see their name pop up on your phone. Using this approach, you tell them once, in a neutral moment, that you are no longer able to lend them money, and that if they ask again you will simply say no so you can protect your budget. The next time they send a long text about needing help just this once, you do not argue or replay the whole history. You send a short "I'm not able to help with money" and you stop there. Or take a work example. A coworker constantly interrupts you during your focus time, even though you have mentioned it many times. You decide that if they drop by unannounced, you will pause just long enough to say that you are in the middle of something and invite them to email you instead. When they show up at your desk or ping you repeatedly during a deep work block, you do exactly that. No lecture, no sarcasm, just the same calm redirect every time. For today, pick one situation where you keep arguing or venting about the same problem. Decide on a small, repeatable consequence that protects your time, energy, or money, and write one short sentence linking the behavior to your action. The next time it happens, skip the debate and go straight to your chosen action. Another powerful place to set dignified boundaries is your response window. Instead of reacting instantly to every message, call, or notification, you decide when and how you respond. You are still being responsible, you are just not available on demand. This matters because a lot of disrespectful behavior hides inside constant, unstructured access to your time and attention. This works because urgency is contagious. When someone sends a text or a rapid series of Slack messages, your nervous system picks up that urgency and starts to panic, even if the issue is small. If you always respond immediately, you train people to expect instant access and you train yourself to live in a constant mini-crisis. When you create a response window, you slow the whole interaction down. You also give yourself space to choose a thoughtful reply or to decide that no reply is needed at all. Here is a straightforward line you can use: I usually respond to messages within time frame, so if you don't hear back right away, it just means I'm offline or focused. This sentence sets an expectation without attacking anyone. It also reassures reasonable people that silence from you does not mean hostility, it simply means you are not glued to your phone or inbox. Picture a manager in Seattle or Montreal who loves to send late-night emails. You used to grab your phone from the nightstand and answer immediately, telling yourself it would only take a minute. Over time, your evenings felt like an extended workday and your sleep suffered. Now you decide that you answer non-urgent messages only during work hours, and that you will not keep explaining this over and over. You mention, once, that you are offline after a certain time and will reply in the morning. Then, when the next 11:15 p.m. email arrives, you let it sit. In the morning, you respond during your regular start of day block, without apologizing for not answering sooner. Or think about dating apps and texting. Someone you're talking to keeps vanishing for days and then reappearing with "Hey stranger" messages, expecting you to jump right back in. Instead of matching their inconsistency or chasing them for clarity, you quietly apply your own response window. Maybe you decide that you do not restart conversations with people who repeatedly disappear, or that you only reply during certain hours when you actually have energy to talk. You do not need a long speech about standards. Your slowed down response, or your lack of response, sends the message. For today, choose one area where your phone or computer keeps pulling you into reactive mode. Decide on a simple response window, write your one sentence explaining it if needed, and practice letting at least one non-urgent message wait until your chosen time before you respond. Boundaries are not only about relationships, they are also about protecting your ability to focus. If everyone around you treats your concentration like a shared property, you will constantly feel scattered and behind. A practical way to counter this is to create clear focus blocks and protect them like appointments, even if they are just 25 or 50 minutes long. This works because attention does not instantly return to full strength after an interruption. Every time someone taps you on the shoulder, sends a quick question, or asks you to just hop on a call, your brain has to restart the task you were doing. When you allow constant interruptions, you train people to expect you to be forever available and you train yourself to abandon deep work. When you defend even one small block of focus time each day, you send a different signal: your brain and your work matter. You can use a line like this: from time to time, I'm in a focus block, so I won't be responding during that window, but I'll get back to you after. It is polite, practical, and clear. You are not saying, "Don't bother me ever." You are saying, "Here is when I am and am not reachable," and then you behave in line with that. Imagine a software developer working from home in Austin or Vancouver. Their team chats nonstop on Slack, and family members assume that because they are home, they are also available for every small errand. The developer used to try to code while half answering questions from both groups, ending each day feeling drained and oddly unproductive. Now they block out 9:30 to 11 a.m. as a daily deep work session. They set a status message that says they are in focus time, silence notifications, and tell family that unless there is an emergency, they will be unavailable during that window. When someone pings them or knocks on the door, they do not instantly respond. They let it wait, trusting that the world will not collapse. At first, people may push back or tease them for being rigid. Over time, though, many will adapt, because your consistency makes the pattern easier to understand than your old, unpredictable availability. You may even inspire others to protect their own focus time. What matters most is that you are no longer voluntarily sacrificing your concentration for every passing request. For a small step today, choose one modest focus block in your day, even if it is just half an hour. Decide how you will communicate it once, set up any tools you need to support it, and then commit to letting non-urgent requests wait until that block is over. Money is one of the fastest ways to expose weak boundaries. When someone keeps asking you for financial help or keeps splitting bills in a way that leaves you covering more than your share, it can feel harsh to say no. You might worry about being selfish or making things awkward. Yet repeatedly rescuing other people with your wallet is a fast path to resentment. This works because money decisions are often emotionally loaded. If you make them on the spot, you are more likely to say yes just to avoid discomfort and then stew later. When you decide in advance what you are and are not willing to do, you take some of that emotion out of the moment. You also remind yourself that it is not your job to fix other adults' patterns with your sacrifices. One clear line might sound like this: I've decided I don't lend money to friends or family anymore, but I'm happy to support you in non-financial ways when I can. Notice that this sentence is about your standing rule, not about whether the person deserves help. It also leaves the door open for support that does not drain your bank account. Picture a young professional in New York or Calgary. A close friend repeatedly asks to borrow a few $100s between paychecks and often takes months to return it. The professional has already reminded them several times and feels anxious whenever this friend texts. After deciding on a boundary, they explain that they are no longer lending money, that they are working on their own financial goals, and that any future requests will get a gentle but firm no. A month later, the familiar text arrives: I hate to ask, but can you spot me till Friday? Instead of reopening the old conversation, the professional replies with a brief message repeating that they are not lending money and wishes the friend well without getting pulled into a long debate. Or think about group outings. There may be someone who forgets their wallet or pushes to split the bill evenly even though they ordered far more. In the past, you might have swallowed your irritation and covered the difference. With your new boundary, you decide that you pay only for what you ordered and that you will speak up one time when the bill comes, making it clear how you are calculating your share. After that, if the group insists on doing it differently, you quietly adjust how often you join them or where you choose to eat. For today, review your recent money interactions and notice where you feel a twinge of resentment. Choose one simple rule for yourself about lending, bill splitting, or subscriptions, write a single sentence that captures it, and practice saying it once to the people who need to know. Boundaries are not only about other people, they are also about how you treat your own mind. One overlooked area is your relationship with your phone and social media. If you let every notification, news update, or social feed tug on your attention whenever it wants, you end up living in other people's priorities. This works because your brain is wired to chase novelty and threat. The more you let yourself scroll, refresh, and check just one more time, the more your nervous system learns that this is how to feel busy and alive. Unfortunately, it also leaves you scattered and anxious with the people you actually care about. When you set a boundary around your own screen use, you are not being rigid, you are giving your mind space to reset so you can show up more fully in the parts of life that really matter. Here is a simple line you can use for yourself and others: after time, my phone stays on silent and away from me unless there's a true emergency. This sentence acknowledges that real emergencies exist while still drawing a line around everyday distractions. It also helps you resist the urge to keep explaining yourself every time you let a notification wait. Picture someone in Los Angeles or Ottawa who wakes up and immediately starts scrolling through news, group chats, and work email. By the time they get out of bed, their mood is already shaped by other people's problems and opinions. Later in the day, they keep their phone on the desk, reacting to every buzz. They tell themselves they are multitasking, but by evening they feel strangely tired and unfocused. After choosing a new boundary, they decide that their phone stays outside the bedroom at night and that they check messages only after a short morning routine. They also put their device on silent and place it out of arm's reach during meals and focus blocks. Or consider interactions with an ex or a difficult relative on social media. They may send comments or messages that pull you into old arguments and emotional loops. Instead of replying late at night or rereading their words over and over, you apply the same principle. You either mute or block them, or you restrict your own access by logging out during certain hours. You do not have to announce it with a dramatic speech. Your lack of engagement becomes the boundary. For a small action today, choose one specific time block when your phone will be out of sight and on silent, even if it is only for 30 minutes. Decide whether you need to tell anyone about this window, write one sentence if you do, and then practice honoring that commitment to your own attention. Let's pull this together in one story. Imagine Jordan, a 35-year-old project manager living in Denver. For years, Jordan has felt like everyone else owns their schedule. Their boss sends late-night emails, a younger brother keeps asking to borrow money, and a casual dating situation drifts in and out of their life with last-minute "you free" texts. Jordan complains to friends about feeling used, but nothing really changes because Jordan keeps repeating the same lines without changing their behavior. After an exhausting week, Jordan decides to try a different approach. First, they write down one clear rule for work: they will not respond to non-urgent messages outside of work hours. They craft a simple sentence to share with their boss about being offline after a certain time and decide that, once it is said, the real boundary will live in their actions. They also set a daily focus block from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. for deep work. Next, Jordan looks at money. They realize that every time they lend their brother cash to get through the month, they feel tightened in their chest and irritated for days. Remembering that a boundary is about their own actions, they decide that they no longer lend money to family. They practice one sentence in the mirror, explaining that they are focusing on their own financial goals and will not be providing loans anymore. Finally, Jordan turns to dating. They notice that they answer texts at any hour and accept plans with almost no notice. Instead of sending another long message about wanting to be respected, they quietly decide that they no longer rearrange their evenings for last-minute invitations. If someone texts late with vague plans, they will simply not engage. Over the next month, the tests arrive. The boss sends a 10:30 p.m. email asking for feedback tonight if possible. Jordan feels a familiar spike of anxiety, but remembers the sentence they shared and leaves the email untouched until morning. The brother calls with another urgent money request. Jordan calmly repeats their new rule and offers to help brainstorm other options. The person they are seeing sends a "come over" text at 11 p.m. Jordan puts the phone back down and goes to bed. Nothing explodes. Some people are annoyed, some adjust, and some drift away. The biggest change is inside Jordan. For the first time in years, they feel like their time, energy, and money actually belong to them. They still have hard days, but they no longer need to give 3 speeches before they act. They state things once and let their follow-through do the talking. What you have seen here is a quieter way to hold the line. Instead of chasing people with repeated speeches, you decide what you will do and let your actions carry the message. We started by naming the cost of repeating yourself and by shifting your idea of a boundary so it describes your own behavior instead of trying to control anyone else. Then we practice saying your line once, in a calm moment, so you are not relying on emotional outbursts to communicate your limits. From there, we attached simple, non-reactive consequences that protect your time, energy, and money. We slowed down your responses with clear windows, protected your work with focus blocks, steadied your finances with money rules, and cleared mental space with phone and social media limits. Finally, you watched all of those pieces come together in Jordan's story, where one person quietly reclaimed their life by changing how they acted rather than how loudly they talked. Now, take this from theory into practice. First, choose one relationship or situation that drains you the most and write a single sentence that starts with "I don't" or "I will," describing how you will act differently from now on. Say it once if needed, and then let your actions match it. Second, create one small boundary around your time by setting either a response window or a daily focus block, telling the people who need to know, and holding onto it for 1 week. Third, pick one money or phone habit that leaves you resentful, decide on a simple rule for yourself, and follow it through the next time you feel tempted to break it. If this lesson on dignified boundaries was useful, the next deep dive to explore is how to stay grounded when people push back against your limits, so you can hold your line without guilt, rage, or endless explanations. If you feel messages like this need to reach more people, subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next lesson.